Hello, everybody. Good moment, wherever you are right now. This is pretty early on in the morning. It's right about 7:30 in the morning here. I was journaling something, and out of that came an inspiration for just going live with what I was looking at, which was around this theme of what truly matters to you. And to go further in it, I was actually looking at if nobody really gets it, does it still matter to you? Would it still count? Would you still choose it? That's what I was looking at, and it was really cool stuff. So I thought, let's just go downstairs, hit record, and vlog about it. Talk to you guys, share with you some things that I've been looking at. And so I have my journal with me, and I might be just looking at it a few times to just sort of get direction on what I want to talk about here. So the first thing that I wrote here, I'm just going to read it, is really looking at what feels right or even true, but is not light. So those of you guys who have been here for a while might already know this, but if you aren't, I want to introduce you to this thing called access consciousness. It's a modality that I sort of use, yes, as my business, but also in my life, like creation of my life and my living. It's a platform through which I really use these tools as platform in my life through which I navigate and move and create, and it really works for me. And I'm a re- I'm a bit of a like I'm a little different. I When I say I'm a little different, what I mean is that um, I never felt like I fit in anywhere growing up. I tried, however, I tried a lot, and a lot of people I grew up around might actually find it to be pretty shocking if I say things like that. And that's because I was so good at fitting in and in like trying to be what I think I should be, for which I will be accepted or received. So, anyways, and I did a terrible job even at that. Let me just say that too. So if you're someone if you're listening and you've been a part of my life when I was growing up, you'd be like, "What are you saying?" I hear you. I was terrible at even trying to fit in too. It doesn't really work. But anyways, so access consciousness is one of the things that I use in my life. It's my platform through which the tools I use them to create my life and living. And one of my most favorite tools that I think I have used the most as well. I think you cannot really live any other tool than access if you don't get this one, is the light and heavy tool, which is the simplicity of it is that which is light for you is what's true for you. That energy is always guiding you, it's giving you information, and that you know. And when I first heard it, I remember so many things just made sense to me, because it made sense to me why growing up, this one person who was around when I was growing up, I had a very strong awareness that this person doesn't like me, is sort of almost passive aggressive with me. But this person, on a surface level, in front of everybody else, will always be extra loving, extra kind. And I would tell my mother about it. My mom, for years and years and years, it was a struggle because my mom used to think that I am making it up, and I never did. So when I first heard what's light is what's true for you, what's heavy is a lie, I never had any reasons or any proofs or any validation to tell my mother that, hey, this is what this person does. So that means it shows that, this person doesn't really like being around me. They're sort of like just pretending to like me. And I didn't have any of those, to be honest, but I always had a very strong sense of knowing. And your knowing does not require a reason or a justification. When you know, you know. How do you know? You don't, I mean, I don't have an information. I don't really know how I knew that. I knew that I knew that. I knew that I can perceive energies. I knew that it didn't feel real. And when I learned this tool, light and heavy, what I understood was actually what was going on is that it was very clear to me because it was never light. And when I looked at that, this person actually doesn't like me, was super light. And this is not to really say in a way of complaining or, it was just an acknowledgement of what is. Because when you acknowledge what is, it lightens up your space. So that was one of my examples. When I first heard the light and heavy tool, it made just so much sense. Another example, right around that time when I heard this tool, that instantly resonated. I was like, of course that's true. And of course now so much of my life makes sense. because I was energetically aware, not just looking at the surface of what people are saying, but the energy underneath it. Like, have you ever noticed that what comes out of people's mouth and what's in their mind or their headspace or what's actually true are two different things often? And this is really not to make anybody right or wrong. This is the purpose of all of these tools is for you to have awareness because it's all about what truly matters to you. What is it that you are interested in? What is it that you would like to have in your life? What is it that you would like to create? Those are all the relevant questions that we seldom ask ourselves when we're busy living on an autopilot, fulfilling everybody's needs, really trying to fit in, really trying to get it right. We totally miss the point that we have as a, a being, we have our own point of view, a different way of looking at life, and that life and everything that shows up is giving us information all the time too. So anyway, yeah, there was also just to finish that track that I went on, that another thing that really popped for me was just a few months before I found Access Consciousness, I chose to break up with my then boyfriend. By the way, fun story, he's now my husband. We get to create our life together. But back in the day, I broke up with him and I didn't have any reason. Once again, like our families met, everybody loved each other. His family loved me, my family loved him. And on papers, on surface, everything looked perfect. And people just, everyone, like, I think 100% of people in my life thought I was crazy. Some people who sort of knew that I functioned different were like willing to play along and see where this is going to go. But most people actually, were not happy with my decision. But I just knew that I had to. I just knew this is not going to work. And me and Ajit, my now partner, we chatted about it back then and we looked at some things. And yes, you could look at some petty, pragmatic, whatever reasons, like, we have communication gaps and things like that. But I didn't even have to justify that. To me, it was like just moving forward back in 2011 with that relationship was just, I knew it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And it was an easeful choice. Wasn't easy in a lot of ways, but I just knew. And I didn't know why I knew this. I didn't know why I'm doing this. I just knew that I had to, get out of this relationship right now. And so that's another story. I guess I should save that for, like, I'll record another whole maybe episode just talking about that, like sharing my uh, vlog or diary entry on this cloud land around it. But anyway, so I had just broken up a few months before that, in this out of this relationship, and I really started, actively choosing something different. I didn't really know what I'm doing, but months later, just a few months later, actually, I did my first access class and my first tool that I learned, which was what's light is what's true for you, what's heavy is a lie. I'm not even kidding. When I first heard that, my body physically relaxed. I was like, oh my God, everything makes sense. That is what I just did a few months ago. I just chose to break up because it wasn't like to go with that relationship forward. And so here's the thing, that energetically, you may not know what the specifics of that thing are, but energetically, you always know what a choice is going to create. And when you're looking at a choice and things start to really contract and crumble down in front of you, you know that that's what it's going to create. Like, has it ever occurred that you just knew it's not going to work, but maybe it was logical and you just chose it anyway, but it didn't work? And you knew it to begin with. So sort of like that, this light and heavy tool is my most favorite. And another really cool thing that really sort of like has always invited me to keep exploring this world of access consciousness, because I'm aware that this whole world has a lot of, like, looks at access with like a raised eyebrow and be like, what is this? Is this a cult? What are you doing? Are you a part of what? I get that. But to me, one of the things that has always kept me going and kept choosing, regardless of what occurs, is not access. Like, access doesn't really matter. I do. You matter in your life, right? What you know matters in your life. But one of the things that has empowered me to choose for me has been in my first ever class that I took in person with Gary Douglas. I remember he started the class by saying, don't trust me, trust you. Always just trust you. You don't have to trust me at all. And that really, I mean, that was the first freaking time ever that anybody had ever said that to me. always people are like, trust me, I know, you got to learn this, you got to do this, and then that will occur. And here comes a man who says, don't trust me, I'm sharing this information, but see what's light for you, because you will know what's light for you is what's true for you, what's heavy is a lie. So it's really not about what I'm telling you, it's really not about what Access is telling you, it's really not even about Access at all. Like, Access really doesn't matter, you matter. And what matters to you? So just using these two tools is something that has kept me going and really helped me strengthen my own awareness with what matters to me, strengthen my own awareness of what is true for me, regardless of what anybody else says. And so my question to you is, if nobody else gets what you get, would you still have your back? Would you still choose to trust in what you know? Would you really acknowledge what matters to you? And would you be willing to look at the pragmatics of things that do not often make sense in the moment? But I guarantee you, like, there hasn't been one single choice that I started by making because it's light and it didn't make any sense. But maybe somewhere down the line, on a retrospect, when I look back, everything made sense. It didn't in that moment. But if I hadn't made that one choice to trust what I know and follow that in action, it wouldn't really show up the way it did. So, this is so fascinating to me because yesterday I was talking to my mom and dad, and I know that my mom and dad have really some very righteous way of looking at life, some really righteous points of views. And once again, I adore them, by the way. I adore my mom and dad. Like, we have a funny relationship, but I absolutely, I'm so grateful to have them in my life. So I'm in no way, it's not really like about saying they are right or wrong. It's really about acknowledging that they look at life from a very right and wrong point of view. And I'm just using them as guinea pigs in this example, but just look at it. How many people in the world live like that? We buy into these points of views. No, I'll actually backtrack. It doesn't start there. It starts from that place of light and heavy. It starts from that place of we are aware of greater possibilities. We are aware that something different is available. And now, what occurs with that is not many of us are educated in the language of energy. Not many of us were empowered to know that we know. I wasn't for sure. And not many of us, not many of us acknowledge what truly matters to us. So, anyway, that's a side. I'm going to put that on a side for a bit and just go back to like, so I know that my parents have certain ways of looking at the world that they believe are very right. And it starts from them having an awareness of a different point of view. But from that awareness of a different point of view, they turn it into this is right. So that is where this whole thing, really looking at what feels right or even true, but is not light. This is how I started my diary this morning. I'm like, wow, that is so. I've heard Gary Douglas talk about this. He says, would you rather be right or would you rather be free? For years and years and years, I've led this. I've been curious about it. I've got it in so many different ways at different points. But this morning, when this came up, that really looking at what feels right or even true, but is not light, I just got a very different perspective on it. I just got how we turn these possibilities that we're aware of, that are the gateway, the doorway to like a different future on our planet, but they require us to follow the lightness of them. We turn that lightness into a rightness. We go from like, you know what, the world could be like this. And instead of really exploring what that would take, we go to like, that is the right thing. And so anything else that diminishes that space is wrong. And we should avoid it. And we should maybe even fight it. Or we should at least pray that doesn't take over the world. And so, and I remember growing up, I used to have this conflict a lot. I used to have a lot of, bickering and, banters with my mom and dad around topics that, because I could see a different possibility and I was doing the same thing. Instead of really having my foot in, like really having my ground with what I know, with what's true for me, following that. Instead of doing that, what I used to do is I used to fight. I used to fight my mom and dad for the rightness of my point of view, that, what they're doing is not working. So, anyways, thanks to the tools, which by the way, one of my greatest freedom with access came almost 10 years after I found access, as recent as like just a few months ago, when this whole exploration, this whole new set of awareness came up around what we now call the big five. But it started with really getting that there are presumptive realities, that we presume things to be true. We look at something and we just presume that this is what it is. And what if something completely different than what we think it is actually what's going on? So anyway, and then there is all of these presumptions that people function from, and any rightness that we take is a big presumption. We just presume that's the right way, that's the only way, or that what we have judged as wrong is wrong, right, is just a judgment. Similarly, right is also just a judgment. There is what is, right? The I'm loosely going to use the word the ground reality of what is in the neutrality of it. You know how a tree perceives that situation, there's that. And then there's all these notions that we attach, the polarity of this is right and this is wrong, that we attach to the same thing. So does that mean it's right and wrong just because we have those judgments? Not necessarily. We just presume. Those are the presumptive realities. We just presume that this is right and this is what's wrong. Anyway, so that piece came up a few months ago. And then another one, which to me personally was hugely liberating, which was basically that react it's called need of reactive reality, but I'm not going to go into the details of that. But I'm just going to invite you to look at here is how much the world functions from reaction. And the world doesn't matter either. Let's just put the world out there. Let's talk about you and talk about me. Okay. How much do you sometimes find yourself functioning from reaction? Like, does it ever occur you say something or show up in a particular way and you don't even like it? You don't even like that you showed up like that. You don't even like that you snapped at that person like that. You don't even like that you had to fight for that which you knew was true for you rather than just have it. You don't even like that about you. What happened there? You didn't even realize that there was a reaction that occurred. Like, and it's so automatic. It's so simultaneous. It's almost like to begin with, we don't even have a space between we and that reaction to even look at what is this thing going on here. So that's why I find like this whole new, and then there are like three more things that popped after that we're now calling the big five. So, you know, to me, this whole big five universe has been the most liberating way of working through anything. Like if you're interested in change, whatever it is that you want to change, like it truly doesn't matter. You might want to change your body, you might want to change your health condition, you might want to change your relationship dynamic, you might want to change your financial reality, whatever it is that you desire to change. If you're truly willing to commit to yourself and willing to use the awareness of big five, whatever the whole, like, you know, the preview of what I just gave you of the presumptive reality and the reaction with what we show up sometimes, you're willing to use those awareness and those tools, you can create change now in a matter of like, I can change something that used to take me days and days and days in just a matter of minutes. And that's, this sort of is an example of that. Like, I was just looking at this morning that yesterday I was talking to my mom and dad, and they have some very dense, intense, righteous points of views about something. And I do get it. I get the part of the possibilities from which they come, but they quickly escalate into this whole pile of heaviness. So anyway, my mom and dad really, and the funny part is we grew up, and this is also one of the things that occurs. So we grew up, mom and dad having those points of views and me fighting them, or me having these conversations around how they're not right and how there's a different way of looking at things too. That used to be our dynamic growing up. And now I've stopped doing that because I really, it doesn't matter. I get that me indulging in those conversations or me giving it any energy or me trying to correct them or whatever is me giving up the space of lightness that I know is possible and that I'm interested in, that matters to me, that I have given up that space of being that truly matters to me in favor of what somebody else's point of view is. And sometimes, you know, it's insidious like that because it starts from a very, you know, what feels like a very nice place because you want other people to have different realities too. But if there's one thing I've learned in my work of being a life coach, working in the field of, this whole universe of personal development, which by the way is a very intense and liberating journey if that's what you're on. Sometimes people even look at it from a spiritual evolvement thing, and I totally, it is 100% that. Like, if you're truly curious, if you're into self-help, if you're into like psychology, you may or may not know this, but somewhere you're looking at the evolution of you as a being. So anyway, we used to have these conversations go in that direction, but I realized, um, especially after recognizing that these are my reaction. Do I want to show up like that? No. Is showing up like that contributing to the energy I'd like to have in my life and see more in the world? No. So when I really started having these conversations, my reactions started disappearing. And this is one of the things that occurs when you change like that fundamentally. It really, really fucks up the world of people around you who are used to associating with you based on those reactions. So now when your reactions disappear, they feel like you're not there. And so there's a whole universe of like, how can you be with that? How can you really, instead of giving into any of that, how can you keep going and still have you and still give people that you care for what they require? So that's a whole different, conversation. But it's been really fun for the last uh few couple years, I'll say, but more dynamically last 6 months. It's been really, really fun watching, my parents get so almost uncomfortable being like, where are you? Where is my child? She's not fighting with me. She doesn't agree with me. She's not even resisting me. What's going on here? So anyway, um so my mom and dad yesterday shared what they shared. And once again, like, I know that's not the energy I'd like to see in the world. That's not the energy I'd like to give more energy to. That's not the energy that I wish my life to be. So I'm not going to engage with it. I'll hear you. That's fine. You can have your point of view. I'm not even anymore gonna like correct you or try to like show you something different. I'm just gonna be that different. And maybe one day you'll have the curiosity to ask me a question and then we can have a conversation or not. I'll still love you. I still get to have you and you get to have me too. Just that your points of reference have changed. Right. So anyway, we were having that conversation. And this is what I was got out of it. Like, especially this morning when I was journaling, I really got, maybe I'm just gonna read a little bit of what I wrote. Really looking at what feels right or even true, but is not light. I think this is so imperative. Um, if you're on this journey, if you're interested in what you might call freedom at all, like basically a space where you have you no matter what's going on, to me, that's ultimate freedom, right? Where you get to have the ease, joy, and glory of your reality. You get to have the lightness of space that's always real and true for you, no matter what's going on around you. To me, that's freedom. Right? So whatever freedom is for you, if that's something that you're interested in, this is something you've got to look at. Would you rather be right or would you rather be free? And so any time that I was looking at it for myself this morning, that any time I have something that feels right or feels true, but it isn't light, am I willing to then in that moment stop and really acknowledge that no matter, I get it, it feels so right, it feels so true, but it's not even an ounce right. Not right, sorry, light. It's not even a little bit light here. And just take a break, stop engaging with that energy. So that's what I was doing this morning, in really acknowledging and looking at what feels right or even true, but is not light. We think that if it is heavy and dense, then we need to be heavier and denser with the rightness of our own point of view in order to not have the heavy and dense win. I'm so grateful that I don't really function like that as much anymore at all. But I can see how I did so much of my life. I've lived like that, This is heavy, this is done dense. And I'd be like, no, I'm aware of something different. So I'll turn that difference into something that's heavier than this and denser than this, so it can be more real than this, whatever this other thing is. And I don't want that thing that's so heavy and dense and, pathetic to win. I want the lightness to win. So I'm going to turn that lightness into even more heaviness so that this heaviness doesn't win. Doesn't really work, really. I mean, can you just see? Total insanity. And I've done it for so many years. And so grateful that I don't do that as much anymore. And I really, once again, want to plug in the whole thing about the freedom I've received from this whole Big Five conversation. And that's why I'm actually even doing this telecall series. If you're listening to this live, it actually starts today. So if you are in a few hours, so if you're curious and want to be a part of that conversation, it's a two-part thing. Hop on. I'll be so happy to, really take these conversations further and include your way of looking at things into it. And even if not, if you're still in curious, you'll still find it in my shop. And, there's so many ways in which we can still talk about it. But this is the madness that we do so many times. So, and I was looking at that whole piece where, we think that something is there in our space that's heavy and dense, and then we need to be heavier and denser with the rightness of our point of view. So that lightness of possibility then turns into rightness of our point of view, right? And in order to not have that heavy and dense win or be a part of our reality. So I was noticing in that way of functioning, there's exclusion in that, because I'm trying to exclude that which I have already judged to be wrong, that which is simply just heavy, not even true, but I've judged it to be wrong, made it real, made it true. What I'm doing is that I'm trying to exclude that from my reality. That's not inclusion, that's total exclusion. Then I was looking at also how there's polarity in that, because, we're navigating this right and wrong journey. Like there's this thing that's going on, and someone has these, whatever point of view of looking at something, a way of looking at life or the world or whatever. And then so many people have the point of view that that's wrong. And then I'm aware of something different, and I have the point of view that that's right. So the heavy and the light is just the simplicity of what is. But the right and the wrong are the judgments that we attach to it. And that's the insidious thing that keeps us stuck. Like, why is it that the world is not really changing in a way that you know it can? Have you ever wondered, like, do you ever look at things and be like, how is it like this? Isn't it like so easy and simple and clear? Why is it so difficult in the world? Why do people look at things like that? Why are people fighting? Why are there wars? Have you ever had those kind of, conversations with yourself, wonderings, musings? And this is what's going on. What I just mentioned is exactly what occurs, that we turn the awareness of light and heavy into the right and wrong. And then we get stuck in the polarity. So there's a polarity of that, right? There's polarity in there, there's exclusion in there, and there's so much that's heavy in that. What if we just recognize that what's heavy is not true? And really look at that, even if it feels true, even if it feels real, even if it feels like anything for that matter. If it's not light, it's not true. If it's not light, it's not real. Like for tree, it's not real. That's my favorite thing to always look at. I really love looking at, okay, how would a tree look at this? Would the tree have the same point of view? I love trees so much. They teach us so much. And they're just there with no significance, with no superiority. In fact, so many people have the point of view that trees are, you can just chop them off, they don't matter. And they don't even have any point of view on that. And still, like, if there were no trees, we cannot live. you know, it's so fascinating. So I love looking at, like, how would tree look at this? It's such a cool way to get a different awareness. So allowing myself to know that what is heavy is not true, allowing myself to have that, even if nobody else is choosing, even if my parents or anybody else is having whatever they're having, really me having what I want to have. I don't want to have the heaviness neither in my life nor in the world. I don't know what it's going to take, how long it's going to take for that to get actualized as a dominant reality on our planet. It might take hundreds of years, maybe less, who knows, or more, who knows. But I know, there's one thing I know, that I wish to see a lighter planet. I wish to see a planet in which the wars don't exist. I wish to see a planet in which people don't exclude each other, don't judge each other, where you can just relax and be. Every child is born into this place where they can just relax and be and explore their capacities and capabilities, explore what they would like to create, explore the lightness that is the truth of their reality. That's the world I want to live in. I don't even care how long it takes. If it But what I do know here is that what it does take is for me to follow that knowing in the whisper of the energy that it is and choose that energy more, because then that is what I'm contributing in this lifetime to that. So when I know that, and when I look at people having whatever they're having, their dense point of view, their right point of views, will I allow myself to have, regardless of that, without excluding that, will I allow myself to have the lightness of what's true for me, what I'm interested in, what truly matters to me? So I was really looking at this morning, and I was looking at, if no one gets it, let's say, does it still count? Like when I was, the first example that I shared, that the person I grew up around, who I just knew doesn't like me, almost despised me, and was so passive aggressive energetically, at least to me, it was super obvious. If no one gets, my mother didn't get for years and years and years and years. I think I was 14 or 15 or maybe even more years old. That one episode occurred that finally got my mother to see, oh, you were right all the while. It is true. Like there was some whatever, it was funny, but like it took me like what, 15, 16, 20 years maybe. I don't even remember when it was. But what I do remember is that really, really getting that, oh my gosh, I've always known. I've always known. There's no way I could have justified this, but I just knew. And what if I didn't have the need to justify to begin with? How much more ease would have I had around that situation, right? So if no one gets it, does it still count? Will you still have your back? Will you still allow yourself to know what you know? Does it still matter? If no one gets it, would it still matter to you? Would you allow yourself to have the lightness that is the space of what's true for you? That is the space of, what you know is real, is possible. So, anyway, I was having this intense conversation with me this morning, and I was loving it. I thought this is something I'd love to share with all of you guys too. And thank you so much for your comments and just reading them. Um, I'm terrible like that. Some people have this ability to like stay on the track of what they're talking about and read comments. I lose my track all the time. So, yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining and being a part of this conversation. If you would, if you're watching this live or in the next day or so, and would like to join the Big Five, what the hell are the Big Five and how do I use them? Telecall series that I'm doing. You're very welcome to come play. If you are watching this later and are curious about what that is, I'm pretty sure you can find it in my shop and have give yourself the gift of having it, or just message me, ask me for, hey, you were talking about that, where can I find something around that? And whatever is relevant in that moment, I'll guide you with that thing. And yeah, who knows what else is possible? I wonder what else is possible. I wonder in what ways we can support our own journeys that would allow us to have more of what truly matters to us. So I'm just going to end this one on that note and invite you to really look at what truly matters to you. And even if nobody else was to get it, would you still allow yourself to have it? All right, my friends, have a lovely rest of your day. Mwah. Kisses and hugs.